The second type of rational equation that we will be solving in college algebra is different in that now instead of one fraction equal to one fraction, we have one fraction equal to multiple fractions or multiple fractions equal to multiple fractions. When you have something past one fraction equals one fraction, you need a new technique to get rid of those denominators. So the easiest thing to do is to think back to quadratic equations when we had like fractions as our coefficients and we said, how do we get rid of those fractions? Well, we multiply everything by the common denominator. So we're going to do something very similar here. I will warn you, these problems get ugly quick. The good news is they get really ugly and then they get really pretty. So let's see how these are going to work. So the second type of rational equation is when you have two fractions or more than two fractions in an equation. In this case, how do we get rid of fractions? We're going to multiply all terms, and here the term is a fraction or a rational expression by the common denominator. It's always best to use the least common denominator, but any common denominator will get you on your way. So let's look at this first example. If we have these three equations, look at these denominators. We have an x plus 2 and or an x minus 2, an x plus 5, an x plus 5, and an x minus 2. So what is the common denominator here among these three fractions? Well, the common denominator is just going to be one of each of these things that is showing, unless there's multiple of them, and then you'll have to use exponents. So I see at most in each one x minus 2 and 1x plus 5. There's no more than 1 in any of those fractions. So our common denominator is going to be x plus 5 times x minus 2. Now, this is where it gets a little ugly. Stay with me. I promise it gets pretty. What we're going to do is we're going to take and multiply each of these by that common denominator. Now, here's the thing. In college algebra, it's a common denominator. So a lot of our students are like, "Oh, we need to put it in the denominator." Okay. But in college algebra, we do it backwards. And the reason is we don't want any denominators left. So it sounds a little silly, but we're going to multiply everything by the common denominator. And when you multiply, those things end up in the numerators. So we're going to multiply by the common denominator, but it's going into the numerators when we do this multiplication. So if I take 4 over x minus 2 and I multiply it by that common denominator, then that common denominator multiplication things end up in the numerator. So we're going to get that. And then this will equal to the second fraction. And I'm going to, again, see this little negative. You got to decide, where does he go? Well, we're going to put him in the top, so the bottom is the same as everything else. So we have a negative 3 over an x plus 5. And we're going to multiply this by the common denominator, which is x minus 2, x plus 5. And that will go in the numerator. It looks a little weird, but that's what happens when you multiply a fraction by something. So in our last one, we'll have x plus 5 and x minus 2. And we will multiply it by the common denominator in the numerator as well, which is x minus 2, x plus 5. Okay, now what happens? This looks a little crazy, but what do you see happening? Let's look at this first place right here. What do you see? What's going to happen here? Well, hopefully you see that the numerator and the denominator both have an x minus 2, which means we're going to end up being able to cancel or divide out those into a 1. And in the second fraction, they both have an x plus 5. So that denominator is gone. And in the third fraction, there is an x plus 5 and an x minus 2, and those are all gone as well. So what has happened here is this big ugly mess has now simplified to 4 times x plus 5 is equal to negative 3 times x minus 2 plus 7, and there's nothing other than the 7 there. So we had this big fraction ugly thing, and then we made it uglier. But look what we have left. This is nice and pretty. This is very solvable by most of our Algebra 1 students. So we're going to distribute the 4 and finish solving this. Distribute the -3. So 4x plus 20 is going to equal -3x plus 13. So 7x will equal -7. So our final answer here will be x is equal to -1. Okay, how do you get rid of fractions? You multiply everything by the common denominator. Multiplying by the common denominator means that common denominator ends up in the numerator. Seems ridiculous, but it works. It gets us really pretty answers, which is what we're looking for. It's how we solve.